Alright, well we are on the other side of Glenbourne. We're on the other end of Lake Glenbourne, the Australian Open. And I am disappointed to say the least, guys. It definitely didn't pan out the way that I thought it was going to. Last tournament of the year, I was pumped, I was excited, I was ready. I had a really good gameplay. I had a really good pre-fish. I was down there for a couple of days, and during the year I had a bad tournament. Well, not a bad tournament, just not a great tournament there. I finished like middle of the pack. It was only towards the end of that I realised kind of what I should have been doing. So when I went out and pre-fished, I was messing around. I thought I would start the pre-fish and just fish it like I did St. Clair. So I tried to find some really shallow bays, some real dirty backwater creeks that only had about a 1 to maybe 3 or 4 feet of water, and flick my blades around there. I was throwing colour 441 and 4 something, I don't know, the black one, the black oyster shell one. You've seen me talk about it in videos, but of course my pinky, colour 441, throwing the Eco Gear ZX40s. That was the way that I started. Yeah, actually no. I did start in a place that I always start at, and I just kind of suss it out. There's just one little deep gutter next to a really steep bank. For some reason there's always fish there. It's just one of my confidence spots. It hasn't held big fish for the last couple times, but they're usually just some bag fillers if you're really, really desperate. But for some reason it only fires in the morning. So I went straight out there, caught a handful. They were small, they weren't really big. As I said, they were just bag fillers if I was desperate. And then I went on the hunt. I decided that I would try and go up to the Eagle's Nest, which is way, way up into like the 8 knot zone. Way up the back of Glenbourne. It's one of the feeder creeks that feed into Glenbourne. The water was dirty. The water was very, very dirty. And then all of a sudden my sounder lit up and I was like, oh yes, like I'm onto something here. They were all carp. The carp problem that Glenbourne has at the moment is the worst that I've ever seen it. There is just, honestly, there's carp in plague proportions, and it is a serious problem that I don't really know. Like the guys down there, fisheries, environment guys, I don't know who looks after it, but it's starting to get a little bit out of hand, especially with the lake being so low. There was a lot of carp. I'd caught a handful of carp, but they were just everywhere. They'd bust up everywhere. What I thought I saw on my sounder up in the 8 knot zone was a lot of carp. I think some of the other guys caught some good fish up there, but I decided to bail out, and I found a few little shallow patches where I did actually catch some nice fish on a blade, but they were not tournament winning fish. What I needed were kilo plus fish. That was what I was on the hunt for. For me, I was fishing it like the grand final. I was going for broke. You know, I went to win. I didn't want to finish middle of the pack. I didn't want to finish kind of close to the top. I was balls to the wall, like all or nothing. So that was the game plan that I was going out for. You know, it was $10,000 on the line, and I sort of did a few things, threw some plastics around. As I said, I threw those blades around. I was catching some fish, but not the right ones. Again, surface, I did catch one cracker on a surface that went like 1.4 kilos. But out of the couple of days that I was there, that was the only fish that I got on surface. So it was on a little soft shell cicada. So that was surface out. I really wasn't feeling it. I decided to pick up a jig pro jig. And I just started fishing some of the weed lines, and it was literally in the middle of the day. I pre-fished it for 3 days, and I started fishing these weed lines, and I was getting taps, but again it was like St. Clair. But again, it was like St. Clair in the fact that the fish were quite tentative on the jig. I think it was still, they were kind of just on the cusp of wanting to smash it. I had a lot of trailers pulled down, and like I said on one of my previous videos, talking about jigs, Simon, who is the owner and the maker of the designer, maker, owner, whatever you want to call it, all the above, of the Jig Pro jig, Simon was saying that they were kind of, the bass was sort of in that transition period where he thought they were just trying to declaw all of the crays in there, which made sense because all of my plastics, the asses were pulled down on them. So even the ones that I was getting the hookups, a lot of them were spitting it. It was in their mouth, but they just, I don't know, they must have just had it by the plastic, not engulfed the whole jig. So when you went to make that hook set, it would just pop straight out of the mouth. It was really, really annoying, really frustrating. So I did downgrade on the jigs. I was starting to throw some big jigs around. I was throwing a mix of the Jig Pro, all half ounce. I was throwing all half ounce jigs. So I was throwing the half ounce Arky jigs when I was fishing in really heavy cover. When I was fishing some of the rockier edges that didn't really have that much timber, not that much weed, I was actually switching it up and I was throwing the Jig Pro footy jig, the football jig. Again, if you haven't watched a video previously of me talking about jigs and just some little tips, you'll get to see these guys up and close. And I'll kind of explain the difference between the Arky jig and the football jig and when and where you sort of want to use it. You guys can decide for yourself, but these are the places that I like to throw them. So the Arky jig is really, really great for the timber. So that was what I was throwing right into these trees. Now, I came up with a pattern that was working really well, and I knew a few of the other guys were going to use it too, but I just thought that these trees that I had, it was quite specific for me, what I found, that I was pitching and casting these half ounce Jig Pro jigs into the base of the tree. Now, it had to have some nice spindly stuff around the tree, but one really solid base. And I was finding like it had to, if this is the tree, this jig had to run basically down the tree. No good if it was here or any further, the fish were not touching it. You needed to feel it hit the tree. And when you're just doing those subtle little taps up, subtle little lifts, sometimes I do like a little slow drag, and you can just feel this jig sort of slide up and over the timber. And as soon as it gets over, I'd open the bail arm, let it drop back down, and a lot of the times that was when it was getting smashed. So I had to slow down a lot with these jigs. Some of the jigs, I could feel the fish tapping it and following it, still maybe 5 to 10 feet out from the tree, but they were following it since it was running down the base. So that was a really, really important bit. Your casts needed to be really, really good right on the base, otherwise you were not getting those bites. So I found that the trees in about 30 feet, maybe about 15 to 30 feet, throwing these half ounce jigs, they were producing really good fish. They were kilo plus fish, and they were really healthy and really fat compared to a lot of the other fish that I had been catching on the blades that were still, 40 or mid 40 to the fork length, but they were just like herring. Like, they were so skinny, they were starving for food. They just didn't have the condition that the fish had that I found on these jigs. So that was my game plan. I then just tried to find other bays around Glenbourne. I don't know if you guys haven't fished Glenbourne, get down there. It is a great place to fish. Glenbourne and St. Clair are literally some of my favourite dams to fish. We don't have dams really like that in Queensland, but there's a few that are close, but nothing compares to Glenbourne and St. Clair. But Glenbourne has timber. It is full of timber. There is so much of it. Really, probably the most efficient way to fish all the timber without losing a million lures is with the jig. And it was a perfect time. It was starting to heat up. It was really, really hot. But that leads me into the next thing. So I was throwing these jigs. I was really pumped. I was excited. If you guys haven't seen my pre-fish video, get over there. I'll drop a little tag up here that's got the link. Check out my practice video, because I was literally smacking some big old bass off these jigs. This was actually my weapon of choice, actually, the lure of choice. It's a brown and purple that Jig Pro does. It's It is a phenomenal colour. My other favourite colour that I've lost all of them of. Oh, I thought I just saw one. As a chatterbait, it was different. Was Jig Pro's olive. It's a really nice olive colour. I was throwing that in the footy head and the Arky jigs. I did lose a couple, and apparently I've lost all of them, so I'm going to need to hit Simon up. My room, everything's a massive mess at the moment. I'm literally balls deep in like trying to organise everything for the new season. I've left it a little bit late. Like even my whiteboard is empty. I've been too caught up these last couple of weekends sorting things out. But next weekend, I'm getting into it. But we're talking, I'm going off track. I'm going off track, guys. I'm going off track because Glenbourne made me depressed. It was so stressful. So the jigs, that was the deal. Practice day was very windy, and at the end of practice day we had reports that there was going to be severe wind warnings from around Glenbourne, the Barrington Tops. It was just sort of down the road from there. That's sort of like their mountain range around Glenbourne and St Clair. Severe wind warnings. I think Barrington Tops were supposed to have winds over 100 k's an hour, and I think they did. I think there was well over 100 k's an hour they got up there. So day one, it was so windy from like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. It was blowing an absolute gale, and none of us were really excited about that. There's a difference between wind and wind and gale force wind, and what we had was gale force wind. We were all saturated because it was blowing sideways on the boat and we were going to check in, so all the waves were just slapping. 5 o'clock in the morning, soaking wet, trying to get to boat registration and live well check. Being wet at 5 o'clock in the morning before you start your tournament is definitely not a vibe. It's definitely just not chill. And that was how the morning went. Unfortunately, the bay that was sort of like my bay, like my hot bay where these bass were coming from, was literally like standing in front of the fan on speed 10 million. It was unprotected. It was an unprotected bay that was literally coming from the back of Glenbourne. Like, oh, it was stressful. I actually did catch a fish on literally like the second cast, first or second cast. I threw like a 1/4 ounce Jig Pro jig right up shallow under this tree, sorry. And I was kind of done with it, and I was reeling it back, and a fish nailed it on the retrieve, and I was like, oh my god! And that started it off, and I was like, okay. Then I lost a handful again. It fished for me a lot like St Clair. For me, I had so many missed opportunities. It was a double header, the grand final at St Clair and the Australian Open at Glenbourne, and I just fished so not good. So not cool. I missed so many opportunities that really could have had me sitting better. I just wasn't on my game. My game plan was pretty solid. However, a lot of other guys' game plans were also similar to mine, and they were also solid. So you mix that with 60 plus boats on Glenbourne, you're not the only dude with that plan. And trying to fish in that wind without spot lock or anything was just hell. I did manage to bag out on day one, fishing those jigs. It took a while, but the bag that I had was pretty solid. Not as good as what I wanted, but I think it was about 4.5 kilos. Where are we? So 4.44 kilos. I knew it was going to take 4.5 upwards a day to be up there, to take it out. Had a couple guys punch in over 5 kilos at the end of day one, and I didn't expect that. That rocked me a little bit. But after day one, I think I was still sitting. I think I was still sitting inside the top 20. I might have even been higher. But so I wasn't that far out. I just needed another one of those good days, catching a 4.5, 5 kilo bag. I was hoping that the other guys that were catching fish wouldn't hold up for them, because I think a lot of them did catch them up quite shallow, up the back of Glenbourne. But that wasn't the case. They smashed it again, and 40. Congratulations, 40. That is awesome, dude. 40, if you guys don't know, Mr. Graham Ford, me and him had been neck and neck all year to take out the Angler of the Year. 40 just pipped me. He got me by 4 points, I think it was. So I was 4 points behind, knocking 40 off for AOY. So he got me for AOY. 40 actually just missed out on winning the grand final, but he did get the 10 gram and fished awesome, took out the Australian Open, so congratulations, man, that's really, really cool. 40, Graham Ford, a great guy. He does a lot of fishing charters, guys, so if you jump over to Graham Ford on Facebook, you can check out his fishing charters. Definitely a person that you want to learn some things off. But yeah, the weather came in real bad on day one. Not only did the wind not finish or not stop all day, we then had a dust storm that pretty much made it almost like night time in the middle of the day. Followed by the dust storm, we had an actual storm. So we're in the middle of a drought and this storm rolls through out of nowhere, proper sideways rain. Dude, there was water spouts. There was water spouts on the lake. Like, if you guys don't know what a water spout is, YouTube that immediately, because it's basically like a tornado of water, like a little twister of water. They were opened up all over the lake. I had one right in front of me that was going like across, and I was like, oh, that's not cool. And then it made a beeline straight for me. So here I was like holding on, like it was like I was riding a horse, man. Like I was holding on, kneeling down, holding my front sounder with my foot on the electric going like 100, just so it didn't smash me against the bank. Like it was a horrific time. Like it was, man, I thought Somerset was bad. If you guys have seen my Somerset video from earlier on this year, but it was worse than that. It was horrible. So, you know, 4.5 kilos. I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't happy. I knew I could have got more. Day 2 was a complete write-off. And it was such a different day. It was super hot. It was dead, slick, calm all day. Literally not a breath of wind. Which, if you guys in the fishing scene know, dead, slick, calm is not good. You just want a little breath of wind at least. But I mean, the water was glass. It was hot. It was sunny. Not a cloud in the sky. Couldn't have contrasted more from the day before. And I only got 2 fish for the entirety of the day. It was one of the longest days I think I've ever had fishing. Yet my head started to really sort of play on me because I had such a good game plan and I was going all these places, throwing jigs into these trees that I'd found fish. But, you know, unfortunately, day 2, 60 plus angler field, and you're not catching fish, then you're starting to think, oh, should I be wasting my time here? Because it's probably been absolutely slaughtered by everyone else throwing a jig. So then when you start getting that in your head, you start getting very unsettled and you start fishing a lot quicker than what you should be and not giving places the time that you should. And that was me. It rattled me, it threw me. I was just going over to any last little thing that I had. I even started throwing the blade around for a little bit. Not long, but I did. I wasn't panicking. I was just in a really unsettled place. I had 2 fish and I knew that the day was going, and I could see this $10,000 just like getting further and further out of reach, and it was really, really doing my head in. I decided that literally the last fish of the day, I think I had maybe an hour and a half left before weigh-in, and that was my second fish. I went to a place that I'd caught a fish on a blade before. I decided that I wanted to try and fish some dirtier water. There was literally like 2 or 3 trees in this entire bay, and the water was like chocolate milk. It was dirty, and I went, you know what, I'm going over to those trees. It looks ugly, and there's like 3 trees in an entire bay, that's it. And I kind of hoped that maybe people had overlooked it because they just couldn't be bothered, and it looked really yucky. It just didn't look good to fish. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to throw a jig in there, and then I got nailed and caught my second fish for the day. So I only finished on 1.47. It's literally, I think it was only the second tournament this year that I only caught, that I didn't bag out. Second tournament of the year, the entire year that I didn't catch my full limit of fish. And that hurt me. That was sort of a bit of a kick in the guts. But that's fishing. Can't help it. Not blaming anyone, it was just the way it went. I got outfished by other people, got caught up in my own head, there was too much going on, and I just dropped the ball. But, like I said, Jig Pro Jigs definitely caught me every single one of my fish that I put in my bag on the Australian Open. If you didn't have a jig in your hand, you were not doing the right thing. And yeah, that's about it. That's literally the main lure that I used, especially in that particular colour. The trailers that I was using was a mix, again, of mainly the Kitech crazy flappers, noisy flappers. I was using some of the curly tail Kitechs, and I was using some of the Z-Man 2.75 inch bugs as well. I just got them because they were brand new at Tackle Tactics. I decided to go down and get a few and try them. I did really like them. I liked the UV colour in them, and they matched up with my plastics really, really well. So that was what I caught literally all of them on. Alright, so we're talking about the weapon of choice. This rod I did not put down. The rod and reel combo was a combo that I literally used for about 3 days straight throwing these jigs, and it is one of the most remarkable combos I think I've ever used ever. Not only, let's start off with the Helios SX. Before I go any further, the bait cast reel that I had was a Helios SX. This bait cast is one of the most phenomenal bait cast reels I've ever used. It is so smooth. Guys, you can throw crankbaits off this thing, no dramas at all. It's actually got a fully disengaging spool, like the pin that goes through the spool, it fully disengages. So basically, you've got a lot less friction, it runs straight on a bearing, and it's amazing, like it's smooth. Honestly guys, I'm sponsored by Akuma, and I know that probably half of you are Shimano or Daiwa or Luz or whatever, but do yourself a favour, if you guys ever get the chance or are curious about the Helios SX reel, I promise you it will blow your mind. I've given it to a bunch of mates and they love it. I've converted quite a few of them over with this reel particularly, and I love it. I find it really hard to put down ever since I've got it. It's amazing. I believe it's a 7:3 to 1 gear ratio. In the left hand there might be the Akuma range. They've got a few options, but I reel with my left hand, so I've got the 7.3. The rod that it was on was an Akuma TCS, so it's a Scott Martin signature series that I picked up. Phenomenal. It's great. These guys are actually like a crankbait rod, and I actually like it. So the way the Americans do the crankbait rods is they're a fast action. This is a medium heavy. So the backbone in it is real good, real heavy, fast backbone. However, it's got a really parabolic tip. So what that means is when I'm throwing jigs and I want to feel those subtle little taps and I can feel that little weight on the line, because jig fishing is so finesse here in Australia, you want to feel every little thing that jig is knocking over, falling down. I want to feel when that fish is kissing it. I want to feel when that fish has just sucked it straight in so I can set that hook. So the parabolic motion that the TCS series has in this crankbait rod is perfect for throwing jigs. I'm probably going to upgrade next year into something a little bit faster and a little bit heavier, just to get them up and out. But this guy's definitely, don't get me wrong, this guy's definitely handling the task at hand. So I'd say it's 8 to 15, yeah, 8 to 15 pound rod, so it is definitely heavy enough to throw your jigs, but I'm just going to go a little bit heavier just to get that power to get it up and out of some of those sticks when I need it. But look, that just wraps up the recap. Finishes the year, so this is it for the tournaments this year. That's done, that wraps it up. Didn't win grand final, didn't win Australian Open, so just going to have to win them next year. That's the deal. Look guys, if you enjoyed this video, hopefully I gave you some little tips about Glenbourne and maybe jig fishing. If you guys have any questions, make sure you drop them in the comments below. Get over to me. I've got so many social media outlets that you guys can contact me through. Anyone, I'll do my best to reply as quick as I can. I do get really busy and I try to reply to a lot of them on the weekends when I have 2 seconds. But as I said, if you like this video, make sure you give me the thumbs up. Ring the bell so you get notifications when the videos come up. But to do that, you guys need to subscribe to this channel. Make sure you subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, guys, make sure you do that, because then I can keep on bringing videos like this to you. Also, if you guys, I'm just up the top here, I'm going to drop a little thing. If you guys want to go into the draw to win a giant bag of these Jig Pro jigs, make sure you watch that. I've got a big giveaway that is coming to you guys in only a couple of days. So get onto my Facebook, get onto my Instagram, subscribe to this channel so you can find out more. But saying Facebook and Instagram, get over there, follow me as well, Keeghan Painter Fishing. It's the same everywhere, all across the board. So that's me, that's done, that finishes the year. Thank you so much for watching me in 2019. Hopefully next year, I'm going to win. I'm going to win at least one tournament next year, and I'm going to win the big one. I'm going to win Australian Open. Yeah, that's what's up. Alright guys, I'm out. Catch you later.